his mother has been my client for probably 4 years.
I recognize you.
Where's Miss Johnson?
She is up on the screen.
Where's she at?
She's at home today.
Home.
Yeah, she's
His mother
teleworking.
has been my client for,
It looked nice,
just
doesn't
like
it?
she's in the mountains.
I know,
Mhm.
with
I
sunshine.
was thinking that she may.
Yeah.
All right, we're all set. You can start when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to bring the Civil Service Commission meeting to order, November the 7th, 22 at 12:15. Call to order. We have all three commissioners are here today, so we have a quorum. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The minutes of the meeting for August the 1st, our last meeting, was published and sent out. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll move.
I have to abstain. I wasn't here. I have no idea if they're right or wrong.
Okay, I'll second. It's been moved in second. Any discussion concerning the meeting minutes? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. All those disapprove say nay. Motion carries. New business. We'll go ahead and go into the command staff quarterly report. Steve?
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate your time today. We're gonna share our screen. I'm gonna try to hard share screen. Share. That. Share. Display. There we go. All right, Lonnie, give me a thumbs up if you see it. Sweet. Okay, here's our presentation for the day. It'll be relatively brief, but hopefully informative. Only 4 slides total. Promise. I'll give you a PowerPoint. Okay. We're doing it this way. Okay, so let's talk about our current staffing since the last time we met. We are completely filled for chiefs and deputy chiefs and commanders. We have all 9 sergeants now. We have all 6 corporals. We currently have, as you can see here, a few vacancies for officer, a total of 7. Of that 7, we have 3 in backgrounds currently. We have nobody in the academy right now or pending to go to the academy. They've all graduated from the academy. And we have 3 vacancies of which we're interviewing for. Actually, that was 4 now, because we have recently announced that retirement upcoming in December. So we also have on the civilian side, although it's not really stuff that matters to you guys, it's not civil service, but it does give you a good snapshot of the department. We currently have 1 vacancy for our department assistant 3, and that was for our body worn video program. We were waiting for that program to come online before we did that. Now that we're getting ready to start that program, we'll be filling that position here in a very few months. So that's cool. We did get our computer technician on board, which is pretty exciting. With that, so you can see a little better. We are down to 2 community service officers because our other 2 community service officers have gone through the academy, are now full police officers. And we have 4 openings, of which we have 3 in backgrounds currently for those positions. So pretty exciting. They should be coming out of backgrounds in the very near future as well. So let's talk about staffing changes here. All right, so staffing changes since last time we met. We've had 0 retirements. We did have 3 resignations for a variety of reasons, frankly. One gentleman retired, became in charge of the bus company or the school bus system in Tumwater. One recent academy graduate decided to leave for family reasons. And the other one was for family reasons as well. Commute issues related to a family member. So she determined that it would be better for her to work for another jurisdiction. So hiring process during the last time since we met, we've interviewed 19 folks. 2 were disqualified in the pre-background phase. Of the 3 that went through the process and went into backgrounds, 1 is a lateral, 2 are entry level, which are in progress backgrounds. The lateral should be coming up here pretty quickly, and the 2 entry level are not too far behind. And as I said, we have 4 CSOs and backgrounds, although maybe down to 3 at this point. Okay, new hires since we last met. We've made no hires and no additional promotions. Okay, this gives you an idea since January 2020 of the folks we've been hiring. It's a total of 24, of which 16 have been entry level and 8 have been lateral. So a really nice mix of about 1/3 laterals, which is kind of new energy versus institutional knowledge. It's kind of a nice balance. The ones down here are blocked out because they're still in the background process, so it would be fair to put their names out yet. So pretty pleased about that. Let's see. Yep, that's pretty much the end of it. We've had no personnel matters, no discipline during this quarter, and I'm available for any questions.
So the laterals, they all within the state? From
I
other,
believe so. All laterals? Yes. All laterals have been in state.
okay, so. And you
Except for-
said that you had no one in the academy. I thought we had someone in the academy the last meeting. Have we had someone graduate?
Yes, Officer Pelicow graduated the academy, is now in the field training program. We have 5 people total in the field training program right now. One will be graduating from the field training program in the next day or 2. And that leaves 4. One's programmed to exit the field training program in December, and the other ones will be in the February time range.
As a rule, it has been normal practice that the commissioners have been invited to go to the graduation.
We'll make sure we'll add that to our list.
We're not attended the graduation,
The graduation of the academy or the
academy.
swearing in here?
the academy.
Okay, we'll make sure. you're
And,
invited.
you know, I've attended a lot of the swearing in, being that I've done this for almost 13 years. I've attended a lot of swearing ins, but that's up to you to value for the commissioners to attend.
So the graduations are in Burien at the academy.
Right,
We'll certainly include you on that information. And the swearing-ins happen here at City Hall, the formal ones. We do frankly, immediately after graduation, their first day at work, I do a quick swearing in to get them ready to work. And then as time moves on, we do a formal swearing in with their family members. So they do actual badge pinning and folks can attend and have cake. So I could do that. You guys will definitely be invited to those as well.
Thank you.
and they swear them in up there at the academy. This has been the practice.
Well, I'm sorry, but what's in Burien?
Burien is where the academy, the Criminal Justice Training Center, has their primary academy.
Oh.
There's a secondary one on the east side of the state, Spokane, but that's more for equivalency and for folks on the east side. Almost everybody goes to the one in Burien. They're looking at the possibility of regional academies. That'll be discussed in this year's legislative session.
And we still have one of our employees up at the academy.
He is the person who's announced his retirement. So
Oh,
he'll be
yeah.
leaving in December
Okay.
for a LNI related retirement.
All right.
And so we'll be opening up that position in 2023.
But you're gonna leave it here, not put it up there, is that correct?
Pardon?
That position will be used here rather than used up there?
Well, if we do put the position up at the academy as another tactical instructor up there, it's not counted towards our numbers here. We hire behind it,
Okay.
so it doesn't affect our numbers here in
Oh.
here in the city of Lacey. It's actually, that position is paid for by the state.
That's right. All right, well, great, I'm glad things are moving along. Any other questions? Good, Chief.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we now move into the civil service rule interpretation and task separation of duties. Anything else on the personnel side? Okay, we're good with that, so we'll go into that. One of the key aspects of that was the issue of the separation of duties between the secretary and the examiner. And do you have a manner, Vanessa, do you have a way in which we are going to address it? Handle it?
Well, I think currently there's places in our civil service rules that indicate the position is separate, and functionally, we have separated the examiner duties from the duties of the civil service secretary, because it is a pretty good portion of work. I mean, the police department keeps us busy. So ideally, we would keep those functionally, I think, in the civil service rules separate when it comes to like which position function actually is in charge of which part of work. But we would like to put forward for consideration that the commission at the next meeting delegate the full civil service examiner duties to Vanessa. So she would actually have both the examiner and the civil service secretary duties. She is the one that supports the police department directly and works most closely with the training and personnel sergeant on all of the recruiting and hiring process. So I would train her to do all the scoring and the protocols for the examiner role. But prior to me, the role was done both by one of our analyst level positions.
Yeah, I don't have a issue with the separation, with the consolidation of the duties. As a matter of fact, the RCW denotes that as one individual, but the cities have the right to break it out and make it two individuals, which many of them have done. Consolidation is not an issue, other than the fact that we were going to need to identify the task. The question is to what detail of identifying the duties in the rules is the expectation? Should it be fairly well defined, just as much as a job description, or is it just to the extent of mirroring the RCW?
I think our rules currently sort of do a good job of saying this section falls underneath the examiner to, you know, for example, the determining the score for passing on a promotional exam. It identifies like the examiner does that. And I don't think we need to say the examiner and the secretary. It could just remain the way that it is. There could be some citation, like maybe in the beginning of our civil service rules, and part of what we're going to discuss today is some updates, suggested updates to our rules document. So we could just say that, you know, the city will continue to follow the RCW, and, you know, when determined necessary by HR, the functions of secretary and civil service examiner may be split.
So what we're saying is we can consolidate it, but we still have the flexibility of separating it by not changing the rules. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes, I think the only change we're asking for, the primary change, is for the commission to consider having Vanessa be the designated civil service examiner come the next meeting.
Okay. So the only other thing that I made note of in terms of, well, I have some editing things within the rules that I'm sure Vanessa and where did I go blank?
Amanda and Madeline.
Yeah.
Is that who you're trying to say? Not Vanessa, she's Amanda.
I know.
It's okay.
A statement to the fact that there's no, this is something I've written and we can look at it at some point, is that the review of actions and decision of the examiner, that there is no appeal or any action or decision of the examiner except as specifically provided for in these rules. However, the commission retains the authority to review and modify any action or decision of the examiner as it deems necessary to carry out the purpose of state laws, city ordinances, or these rules. I don't see anything in there that I see that the examiner has the wherewithal to act on behalf of the commissioner, but I don't see anywhere that the commission has overriding authority for the examiner. And maybe I've missed something, and maybe it's something we need to take a look at, but we can just throw that into the thinking as we go along, go through this, so. Yeah, not critical.
So would this become a part of a job description for continuation if Vanessa departs?
So the functions of civil service examiner and secretary are built into the existing job descriptions for HR analyst, and currently for my assistant HR director role, I have chief civil service examiner duties built in. So the duties would just get shifted within the actual classification of HR analyst or whatever position HR deemed. So the duties don't ever change. The people do, you know, if Vanessa were to promote out at some point, yes, we would shift those duties. We would come to the commission and say, we no longer have Vanessa Medford. We need the commission to bestow the duties upon this position now, or in the interim, give them back to the management level position until we can train somebody.
Thank you.
So where do you want to go with this?
So you could, because we're just doing proposed changes today, we could put the proposed language of the RCW into like the beginning of the rules. And then part of what we were going to do too is reach out to other jurisdictions with civil service examiners and secretaries and their rules and just see how they were incorporating similar language on the RCW. And functionally, you know, I'm only familiar with how we've done things here at Lacey and somewhat familiar with how things were ran with the Civil Service Commission in Kent, which is the other city that I used to work with. And I think kind of like Lacey, the examiner was left to make sure they were just making the calculations, posting for transparency, the promotional list to the commissioned staff. And then if at some point the commission had questions about a promotional process or how many folks were passed on an eligibility list, they could ask those questions at the commission meetings, but I don't think that it was a mandatory report out as a regular standing agenda.
Yesterday, I looked at Wenatchee's. Wenatchee has, on the civil service, has the secretary and the examiner, the same person. They've dictated tasks to some extent like the RCW, but it's not as inclusive. You know, I mean, that's a choice that they made. It doesn't mean that those duties don't exist or they're not responsible for them. It's just that they didn't articulate them in the task. But Yakima has done the same thing. I looked at theirs. Yakima's done some of the same things. So there are other cities that have obviously done this for one reason or another. So.
Okay. I have the kind of going into the rules initially, I have one kind of overall offer or suggestion is removing any excess spaces after periods. There's some in there that's just formatting. The other proposed change that I would like to start off with is changing the verbiage that is his/her to their. That's pretty consistent with our policies here at citywide. I know in the law enforcement field, it is important to have those designations, but for inclusivity, we request getting those updated. So that's my suggestion. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we can open the table up for any discussion on changes or updates proposed by the commission and then command, and then we can, and HR can come kind of behind and discuss those by article, or we can go through individually. It's up to the commission how you would like to function.
Yeah, one of the things that I looked at when I looked at it from a macro perspective is that there's not necessarily consistency in who gets notified for what. Sometimes it'll be the secretary and commission, and then sometimes it'll be the examiner and the commission. At times the secretary and examiner will be questioned, you go through as you go through. Who is it that really needs to be notified? For example, if there's a discipline action, it specifically states that the commissioner gets notified of that. There are, and the secretary, but the examiner is a part of it too, so, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing. So, any comments, Amanda or Heather?
That was one concern, as well as how the notification is given. Some email seems to be okay, which is always a little dicey. Personal service, there was certified mail in a couple different places. I had a question as to whether or not your legal is okay with just email. I can see the efficiency of it. It certainly gets the word out sooner. I like it. Madeline has had problems getting email, so maybe for some things, I think email would be fine. Disciplinary notices, maybe not so much. That was one concern that I had. I have a few, but it's a lot of it's just verbiage.
And this, the email thing was something I was concerned about. Oh, not because I don't get my emails, but besides that, any other organization that I have been around, we usually take a vote. What this can be sent by email, but voting against this being sent by email, rather than just arbitrarily saying everything can be sent by email. I guess I need to know how important that is. Just don't get in any trouble, then I won't have to do this.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. How soon does the code say you need to be notified?
Depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
So eligibility lists. Let's see, notice of change of, so that it's incumbent upon the candidate to notify the chief examiner, but it doesn't specify a time frame. But in the very next section, it says that if there's a failure of a candidate to respond and it gives a time frame, then they can be dropped from the eligibility list. So there's just some inconsistencies of things. So and it obviously would depend on how that would impact you folks.
Right.
Primarily, you know, is it reasonable for you to be able to give notice within 5 days, or is that just something that's just completely not workable? So,
Notice them.
so say we have a disciplinary issue and say that the chief exam, you have, sorry, wrong
Okay.
week. Say you have a disciplinary issue and you need to notify, is it just the commission? Is it the chief examiner and the commission? What's a reasonable time
At
frame for
what
that?
stage of the process are you expecting to be notified?
I don't know. We need to see what it says in here. That's,
So, and I guess that's my question, because there's a multi-level, so there's a one allegation, two,
Mhm.
notice the employee, what we decided is gonna be a formal investigation. Two, notice the employee is gonna be investigated. Three, we do the actual investigation. Four, there's a notice of finding, and then I make a determination as to the finding, notify the employee, then they have their rights, we have a rights hearing, then I make a final determination. I believe at that point, you'd be notified that I've made a determination and I intend to do the following. So and then I report back and I tell you folks, hey, this is the plan, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're doing with this employee. If there's a loss of property rights. If it's remediation of training,
right.
that's different, right? But if there's a loss of property rights interest, that's when you both get this, when I think you guys need to be involved and be noticed, hey, this, you could be contacted by this employee if they're unhappy about loss of property rights.
Mhm.
That's my understanding of it. So I would notify you before we institute the discipline, is really the goal. So,
So you've done all the investigation, you've made
right,
all
and
the,
I've noticed the employee, this is my intent.
okay,
That, because you need to
That
be
sounds
notified, why is this guy calling me complaining,
right,
right? Or why is this employee calling me saying, hey, I've got an issue with what the chief just did. We had Garrity, we had this, we had that, nothing.
right.
So I think that's the reasonableness part. Sending you certified letters, I'm not sure about that, but we can figure something out, I'm
Oh.
sure.
And maybe I misspoke or misdirected. The certified letters wouldn't be to us. It would be to notify an employee of discipline sometime or dropping from the eligibility list
Well,
or,
that's always done in writing.
Yeah.
That's always done in writing, that's just email. They get that.
The only thing about dropping from the list on rule 8, section 3, there, the notice of removal should be given to the candidate provided in rule 9, section 3. Rule 9, section 3 doesn't apply.
it's actually rule 7, section
Yeah,
3,
yeah.
yeah. So that's
So
just
that-
that's just a fix.
Yeah, that's just.
But then, so, and I guess because I'm new in this capacity, and I'm certainly not challenging
No, I understand.
your protocol, because having reviewed some officer discipline, Madeline then gets to turn off the phone though, right? Down in Centralia, I saw that how the process worked, and I thought that was a very appropriate way of doing it before stuff goes sideways. But so just for instance, under transfers, layoffs and reductions, it says that if an employee, if you determine that the salary is going to be dropped, but within the range, then it says you're giving the employee, the secretary, the chief examiner, and the commission written notice of this intention 10 days before it happens. So,
Right, so if I was gonna Y-rated employee, that's, well, I know the phrase of Y-rating. So say I take away a supervisor's responsibilities, but I don't change his pay,
okay,
right? I would notify you, hey, I intend to do the following. For the following reasons, not justify why I'm doing it, number one. Or hey, we are eliminating this rank structure, so this person doesn't have this rank, they would keep their pay. That's how it's been happening in the past, you'd be notified about that, right? We're gonna be adding lieutenants, for example, so as we come to a closer solidifying what that job description should look like, they'll be brought in front of you, hey, this is what we intend on doing for the lieutenant's rank. This is where it falls as far as bargaining units and everything else, and that'll be brought to you folks. Just so you know. But yeah, as far as discipline, because there's definitely time factors involved with that. Yeah, we're gonna need to talk about that, because currently what we've done. There's only been one property rights interest while I've been here. The other person resigned before I could do anything, unfortunately. But the other one was property rights that wasn't contested, so there wasn't. It wasn't such an issue, as for notification purposes. I notified you guys at the next general meeting. So, yeah, so we're gonna need to figure out.
there's just different numbers, you know, there's 30 days, there's 5 working days, except there's 10 days, there's just so we have, so,
I just want to make sure we're consistent.
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So,
I will say that the written notice, just for you all to know, when it comes to eligibility lists, has been email, and we let the candidates know that the email that they're using for the application of the job itself is what our primary communication platform is, and it is incumbent upon them in that same email we tell them to let us know if their contact information is changing. So email is the most efficient way for the eligibility list notification, which is consistent with how we communicate with all the rest of the candidates in the city, is we use email.
and if legal is fine with that, I think it's great.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then
if they
as
don't have a
far as
problem.
as far as discipline goes, and I don't know, I mean, I have been here at the city less than Jerry's been on the commission, but in the majority of instances where an election of remedies is being pursued by an employee, when it comes to discipline, they are most often going to choose the track of grievance and
Mhm.
grievance arbitration versus coming to the commission. It's addressed a little bit in the current CBA for our officers and sergeants about the election of remedies when it comes to pursuing one or the other. So it may not be very often, if at all, that will have an individual coming to the commission as their track for appealing a disciplinary action. It's most often going to go to the grievance arbitration side. And when it comes to formal notification to your question, most often we do both. So communication on email because it is faster, and then in the form of a formal letter through certified mail.
Yeah, I would think that wouldn't happen until after your final decision.
Right, and so
there-
when,
No action's gonna be
Right.
right.
warranted until after a decision is made, and then they react to
And
that.
that, and so, just so we're all in the same terminology, so when Lonnie's talking about election of remedies, that is the appeal process to decision that I made for this. So. All different things, but that's
Oh,
basically
yeah.
what we're bringing.
That
But yeah,
does happen very often.
very rarely. Mostly what we do is my philosophy is to train mistakes and to punish misbehavior. And I've only had 2 instances of misbehavior. As I said, one person was acting inappropriately at the academy and resigned before we completed the investigation. But we did complete the investigation and notified CJTC to decertify the person even before they were certified. Because I'm a big believer in making sure we do that. The other one was not so much misbehavior, but more of a safety concern. We need to document that safety concern, and there was a penalty associated with that. But those are the 2 instances during the last 3 years that I've been. Everything else has been a mistake along the order of I drove off with the nozzle of the gas tank, I hit
yeah.
a pillar of my car,
Human beings.
yeah, mistakes, and mistakes can be trained. So
Mhm.
that's my philosophy is to do that.
What's this loss of property? I don't get that. An
Oh, property
employee,
rights.
yeah.
So if I take a day from you, you have a property rights to get paid for that day. Right, so you're forfeiting that property right day, or if I take away, I'm saying you're being demoted, right? So you had a property rights interest in being a sergeant, now I'm demoting you to corporal. You've now lost that rank and pay and privilege that goes with that rank. So those are called property rights, and so if I do anything to affect your property rights, meaning your basically your paycheck, or your professional reputation, then they can appeal those kind of things. If I say, listen, hey, you're gonna go for writing school, well, that's not a loss of property rights. It's say, hey, you need to get better trained because you're ready to pay better workers, right? So we address that.
Thank you. I
Well-
visualize property rights as take away my house, you know.
So obviously, someone needs to kind of gather the comments and take a look at them and determine which ones warrant further discussion or which ones are administrative in nature.
Mhm.
You know, because we went through this, well, about 2 or 3 years ago, we went through and cleaned up a lot of administrative stuff, you know, which didn't necessarily warrant a major revision. But now we're looking at, maybe some significant revisions as far as procedures with us. So given the fact that the 2 of you are going through a potential transition here, you know, obviously, one of you are going to need to grasp this and then consolidate the comments and then we can regroup and take a look at it. So
Yep.
is that how you see maybe a course of action on it?
And would it be easier to have those written comments? So I could just say, Rule 5, Section 4, what about this?
Yeah, so my process that I've been kind of thinking on is, we're starting this conversation now. We don't expect to get everything done right away. If you have those written suggestions, I will draft up basically a Excel spreadsheet that talks about which rule, if all of us have something, we'd each have our own kind of column. And we can see where the consistencies are, or where the inconsistencies are. For the ones that would be more administrative or cleanup, I would have that designated appropriately, so that would be less time on all of the commission, command and HR on making those changes. And I mean, I have comments too about little things or things that we want some clarification on, so that would be, if you have comments, you could send those in. The commissioners could send theirs in, command could send any therein, And we can continue these conversations. There's some pieces in here that I think need some clarification for us from the command staff, so. I think that would give us a visual that we could say, okay, where are we at, and keep track of the process and those
So-
changes.
Some of that's between the two of you, that, you know, we don't know
Right.
that you're, one of you may be getting into someone else's business, or you're not carrying it far enough, or you're not necessarily satisfied with the process that the examiner is doing, for example, to you.
Mhm.
Then that's where you, obviously, we wouldn't know about that. The two of you are gonna have to have that discussion.
Yeah, as it pertains to verbiage or process in here, that's what we would be addressing as the group. Anything that is outside of this, that would be kind of a read between the lines. Here's how what this really means, that would be a separate conversation.
Absolutely.
You know, notwithstanding that the code carries both, not only the state code, but the city code also carries some protocols and procedures and processes that you're gonna have to follow regardless. You know,
Yeah.
notwithstanding what's in the rules.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
is that, is that how you would like to have it done, is that we provide you with our input, here in the next, 30 days?
Sure.
And then that gives you some time to, take a look at it and see what might be, need further, well, like you say, you lay it out in a spreadsheet or a matrix.
Yeah, so that would be, I think, an adequate time frame. I can draft that up, and then once we, if we're looking at all of the administrative cleanup things, everybody's in agreement, these are great. I can put them into the document as a track change, so we already have that in. And then as we continue to converse after each meeting and come to that kind of general consensus, I can also put those in and track changes, so we have a working document that we would all have access to, that I would provide each time, so we can see what we've talked about, anything that gets, discussed, and kind of the general consensus would be put into the document to review later.
Okay.
And then once we have settled on what we all kind of agree on and have it ready to go, then we can talk about sending that out for, comment and finalization.
Right. I don't, I mean, we've got some little things, but I don't see any big gotchas in it. I mean, as I go through it, and we've worked through the issues over the years, I'm not seeing anything that's gonna be a major contentious issue, I guess I would say.
Can someone clarify for me, was the passive score dropped to 70 or 75?
75.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't recall and I couldn't find it. Thank
Does
you.
that help?
It helps to make sure that we're casting a wide enough net to make sure we're not having artificial barriers to folks for diversity, inclusion, equity. We're still getting about 19 to 22 candidates a month. And going through those, doing interviews, and then those that get to me and get selected and go through a background process, and then we call those through. On average, I'm hiring about 8 officers a year right now.
And it also helps in our outreach. I get a lot of phone calls of individuals that are interested in becoming an officer, really want to be in with the LACPD. They want to know what the process is, explaining what that, scoring means. Most of the inquiries I get are individuals that are getting ready to separate within the next year and a half from the military.
Mm.
And so because they're very process driven, they really want to know what each step is. So those are typically my longer outreach conversations. One thing I do want to mention that I didn't necessarily get in here was we just got approval to be reinstated for the Department of Veterans Affairs to be an on-the-job training facility.
Oh, cool.
And so that is something that expired. If you don't have any activity for a 3-year window, you kind of lose that certification. So our personnel training sergeant spent some time and broke down what the VA needed, and we got the process going. So I am the certifying official for that. For anyone who's coming in and has those benefits available, I would process that information so that they could receive those GI benefits.
So federal VA,
Mhm.
Yes, so kudos to Sergeant Knight and to Vanessa for making that happen and getting that up and running. It's a bureaucratic process.
It's the federal government,
Government.
right?
And being the spouse of a retired
Mhm.
serviceman, it's something that I think is really important. You know, my husband spent over 20 years and neither one of us knew on the job training was an option. It's something that's not widely known for your GI benefit usage. And so it's something that I've briefed our outreach individuals and the other HR team when people are chatting, or a recruitment coordinator, when she's doing outreach events, is to make sure that if they're talking about first responders, she does a lot of things over at JBLM, is mentioning that we are certified to be able to do that and
Yeah.
provide that to them. So
I think the services are doing a much better job now trying to, in the transition of notifying the military service member what benefits and opportunities they have out there for them. They're doing a much better job on that. And there's a lot of money put into a lot of different programs that folks are managing.
Dog alarm.
Somebody's at Jerry's store.
Knocking on my door. So-
Not with those
so-
dogs, right? They'll just knock and leave.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because I have my doorbell on dogs, so people think I've got dogs.
Oh,
Yes.
I don't have any dogs.
Oh, Lord. I can learn.
Okay, so any other discussion concerning that was within what's the day, the 7th, so the no later than the 10th of December, we'll have all our input that and review comments into Vanessa, and from there, you take the opportunity to sort them out and organize them.
Mhm.
And so, anything else on that we need to do? Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with that process?
Yeah, that's a lot like what we do for our policy review process, is gather comment, put in to track change for visual, and then discussion.
Just puts the onus on you a little bit.
That's okay.
But that's fine.
That's my job as the secretary.
We tried to do that once before with the prior examiner, and it didn't necessarily work as well, so.
Challenge accepted.
I appreciate you stepping up.
No problem.
So, anything else? I don't see anything else on the agenda.
Public comment. I do not see anyone in the waiting room, so
So, any other comments for the good of the cause? Other than that, then hereby we are adjourned.